Okay. Well, thank you so much for your patience, audience. And so we're going to go ahead and get started with tonight's program. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all for being here tonight for this community forum for California's 3rd Congressional District. This space is designed to center the voices, concerns, and lived experience of the people who call this district home. Before we begin with candidate questions and discussions, we want to ground this conversation in the reality of everyday life in our communities. Tonight is not only about policy ideas, it's about listening to the impact these policies have on real people. But before we move into the panelists, we'll begin with a brief statement from a community member sharing why they are here tonight and what brings them into this space. Due to some unfortunate circumstances, that person couldn't be here, but Ms. Rhonda Rios-Kravitz will read that statement on her behalf.
So I'm reading this statement on behalf of Mariana Rivera, who could not be here tonight due to illness. But she says, I'm a resident of this district. I came tonight because, like many of my neighbors, I'm feeling the real pressures of daily life. The rising cost of housing, healthcare bills that keep growing, and the challenge of just making ends meet while working hard every day. I'm here because I want to be part of the conversation about what our future looks like. Too often, decisions are made without hearing directly from the people who are most affected. I'm here to make sure our experiences are not ignored. I'm also here because I care about this community, my family, my neighbors, and the next generation. I want to see solutions that are real, practical, and rooted in the needs of everyday people, not just politics. And I want to thank you all for giving space for our voices tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda, for that powerful reflection and for grounding us in why this conversation matters tonight. We'll now move into the candidate questions and answer a portion of the forum. Our goal is to keep this discussion focused, respectable, and accessible to the entire community. Before we begin, here are a few brief guidelines for tonight. Candidates will have time responses, and we ask that they stay within those limits so that everyone has an opportunity to speak. And your timers are right in front, so please, acquaint yourself. Thanks. This is a community-centered space. Answers should be clear, direct, and focused on how your policies impact people here in this district. This is a community-centered space, so we ask for respectable dialogue and that responses address the questions directly. We will include both moderated questions and rapid response, yes, no questions to keep the conversation focused and allow for more topics to be covered. Each candidate will have equal time. Please respect time limits. I will step in if needed. There will be no rebuttals due to time constraints. We also reserve time for community voices, so audience members may be invited to share or submit their questions depending on time. So each candidate now will have 1 minute for an opening statement, and I will start with Heidi Hall.
Thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias por invitarme. My name is Heidi Hall. I'm running for Congress to fight for the community where I have lived and served as a county supervisor for the last 9 years. When Democrats retake the majority, I'll work with them to stop this administration in its tracks. Trump has demolished the institutions that protect us, and we will need to rebuild. But we cannot go back to the way things were before. We need to build something better. For 3 decades, I've built programs to protect the environment while working at the EPA and Department of Water Resources. As supervisor, I've delivered where sitting politicians have failed, building a homelessness program from the ground up. I've worked with the critical institutions that Trump destroyed, EPA, FEMA, HHS. I know what they do, and I know what's been lost. This isn't just a campaign for me, it's a continuation of the work I've given my life to. I'm asking for your support and would be honored to have you join me in this fight.
Okay, Pacey Cervantes.
Hi, everyone. Oh, God, that's loud. Sorry. Holy crap. I'm Lyndon Pacey Cervantes. I may have a Latin last name, pero te prometo, soy gringo. So I have been a radio DJ in the area for about 15 years. I've been a trusted voice in the community for that entire time. I was on 105.1 KNCI, now 100.5, V101, KPK, and more. But what got me into running for Congress is that I was my mom's caretaker for 3 years. She was my best friend, and the federal healthcare system failed her. And she would be alive today if healthcare were actually accessible for everyone, no matter their income level. So that being said, my slogan for my campaign is Build the Billionaires. We are going to make sure that they pay the same percentage of taxes that you and I do in order to expand affordable healthcare, moving towards Medicare for all, expanding affordable childcare, moving towards universal childcare, and taking down monopoly utility companies like PG&E.
Chris Bennett.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Bennett. I am half Puerto Rican. I joined the Army after 9/11, thinking that I was defending our country, and realized that a lot of the things that have happened to us is because of our imperialist colonial policies. Our campaign is truly grassroots in a way where we have actually built our platform directly with the constituents, because you are the experts of your experience. You know what will make your lives better. We have the most comprehensive platform of really any campaign in the entire region, not just this district, because we understand that the problems we're facing, we got here from a lot of past decisions that have been supported by both political parties. We support things that most of us agree we should already have, like single-payer universal health care with Medicare for all, like a federal jobs guarantee, like passing humane immigration policy with common-sense pathways to citizenship, and really making it so that working people can actually afford to live in the places that they work and are from. So I'm excited to be with you all tonight. Thank you for the people who put this together. I know it's a lot of work, and I look forward to speaking to you all today.
Laura Koski.
Hello, Laura Koski. I'm running for District 3. I'm already an appointee through President Trump, and I've made a lot of small little wins, but they're big wins to me. We're fighting for the wildlife. We have like 200 bears that get hit from over-tourism, and I bring up our concerns with the Oversight Committee and the community. I love working with the people, and I love helping out. I spend many, many hours on the high volume days during July 4th and during the concerts to advocate for safety and protection of the lake. So on July 4th, we're not having our lake trashed by outsiders, as well as other major concerns. I'm helping with the allocation of like $400 million with the Forest Service, making sure and checking up on them that they're not dropping our huge logs into our waterways, which cause poison for our waterways. Thank you.
Christine Bish.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christine Bish, your candidate for California's 3rd Congressional District. There's a lot of reasons why I'm running. The number one reason that caused me to run was water contamination in my neighborhood. I live not far from here in the little community of Antelope, and I had discovered that our water was contaminated, and there was a federal lawsuit, and it was from the old McClellan Air Force Base. I contacted my representative to find out what was being done, and I did not get a response. So like many of you, I'm running and trying to make a difference when politicians refuse to answer us. Again, my name is Christine Bish, and I look forward to earning your vote.
Thank you. Now we will move into the questions. Each candidate has 90 seconds to answer each question. Panelists, please remember that all responses are timed. Watch the time cues closely. When your time expires, I will stop you so that we can ensure fairness and equal time for everyone. Okay, question 1. Climate change is already affecting California through extreme heat, wildfires, drought, and rising costs. What specific federal policies or investments would you champion to protect working families and frontline communities? And we will start with Pacey.
So a big thing about my campaign is that I plan on taking down monopoly utility companies like PG&E. Anybody want to raise their hand if they like PG&E? Didn't think so. So they are a huge part of why we have so many wildfires here in California, because they refuse to use any of their profits to underground their wires. I mean, right now, because they're doing some PR backstop, they are undergrounding a lot of their electric wires, but they could have done that back in the 90s. So what I plan on doing is smuttifying PG&E. and other monopoly utility companies like PG&E, so that while we deal with the climate crisis, we can make sure that wildfires can be avoided, and that's going to hopefully lower homeowners insurance and a lot of the people that live in the Sierras, Nevada County, Placer County that have to deal with fire insurance. Hopefully that's going to help the insurance crisis as well. The EV tax credit is so necessary. Unfortunately, EV sales have gone down dramatically since Trump took away the EV tax credit. I actually have an EV myself, and I made use of the tax credit. Same thing with the solar tax credit. Both of those were really helping us get to renewable energy, and it just was taken away because Trump does not believe in the climate crisis. He still, to this day, believes that it was manufactured by China, which China manufactures a lot of things, but they didn't manufacture the climate crisis.
Chris Bennett?
Yeah, so the biggest driver of climate change is institutional polluters, and they are able to basically externalize those costs onto the people least responsible in rural communities and in the global south. So the only way that we will ever truly fight climate change is to actually make the polluters pay for the cost that they are dumping onto the rest of us. And one of the biggest problems people in the rural areas of this district are facing is they can't afford fire insurance. So what we want to do is make a public flood and fire insurance program that's actually paid for by the biggest polluters. Because once they start paying for California homes, they will actually start trying to find a way to move away from fossil fuel reliance. We also support actually having full federal fire department and full federal fire department and fire readiness funding. Sorry, that was distracting. Because one of the big problems that a lot of our rural fire departments are facing is they are just getting their grants denied from the federal level. We think that we need to actually invest in redevelopment and increasing density for our services and also for our housing, because we need to actually do conservation first and foremost, because it's a lot easier and better to protect what we already have than to try to make up for it on the back end. We need to ban new AI data centers until we have sweeping regulation that put those costs back onto the companies that are responsible. And we need a federal jobs guarantee in things like climate readiness, wildfire readiness, things that are actually going to move the needle and make things better for people. So until we start going after those systemic causes, we're going to continue having to deal with these systemic issues. So that's why we want to actually go out at the source and make sure people can afford to live.
Laura Koski?
I'm definitely against the data centers up in Lake Tahoe. We have to share our water from Lake Tahoe with Nevada. 85% goes to Nevada, and now they want to build another data center out in Yerington on a wildlife refuge. So I have talked to many farmers and a lot of locals. A lot more are showing up in South Lake Tahoe at the Oversight Committee to voice our concerns. And they also want to build another one out in Reno. I went to the Switch data center, and it's huge, over 20 miles long. And across this country, people are concerned of their utilities and fire insurance going up. And they want to increase it now around South Lake Tahoe at 6.5% more for our utilities. Everybody is feeling the pain at the pump with utilities and this irradical decision. One day you have fire insurance, the next day you don't. Now, State Farm is working with President Trump and myself. We have Benjamin Holden giving everybody fair fire insurance. The California unfair plan is a $25,000 deductible, and it's inexcusable. It's just another way to divert our hard-earned tax dollars to another government inefficient agency. So I'm 100%, for protecting the forest, and we spent $400 million. Okay.
Christine Bish?
Thank you. I've reviewed the question, and instead of coming up with ideas of what I want to do, I've already authored legislation that will get right to the heart of our problems. Our district is dramatically different. We're down here off of Franklin 47th, Fruit Ridge Boulevard. This district goes all the way up to Truckee, across the open area, all of the forest land to Grass Valley, back down. It includes Granite Bay, Folsom. This is a very diverse district, and it's going to take someone who understands our district to bring solutions. And with that, I've authored the Wildfire Act. And what that does is it helps bring in national fire insurance, very similar to national flood insurance, but with a lot of the fixes that it misses. And that helps us down here in Sacramento with affordable insurance rates and getting more insurance companies in. I've also come up with the Nuclear Rehabilitation Act because I want to retrofit and reactivate Rancho Seco with modern, clean nuclear power. It's renewable, the infrastructure is there, we can do it within 2 years. This is something that will drop down the electric prices for all of the district, from Sacramento up to Truckee, and also help the folks up in South Lake Tahoe. The next thing I want to do is the Dam It Act.
Heidi Hall.
Thank you. Is this one working? Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm actually the only person in this race who's actually already been working on these issues. For 30 years, I've been a public servant, 20 years at the US EPA, 10 years with the State Department of Water Resources. I was holding corporations accountable for their pollution and protecting our land and water. For the last 9 years on the County Board of Supervisors in Nevada County, I've also worked with state and federal regulators to deal with the wildfire insurance crisis, worked with counties up and down the state to come up with solutions, testified in Sacramento, and was invited to testify in Washington, D.C. I've brought millions of dollars in to deal with wildfire mitigation as well. When I am in Congress, I am going to end the $95 billion worth of subsidies that go to oil and gas companies every year. We're going to re-sign up to the Green New Deal. We're going to rejoin the Paris Climate Accords and make sure there's targets and goals that are enforceable. And one of the things I'm really excited about doing is making sure we re-up the EJ group in the US EPA, an environmental justice group that was set up to work with communities just like these out here who are subject to cumulative effects of pollution, have higher barriers, and need assistance and subsidies. That is critical for vulnerable communities to have the extra help, and I can commit to working on that.
Thank you. Okay, question 2. Workers in this district, including farm workers, service workers, and gig workers, often lack basic protections. What federal actions would you support to raise wages, ensure safe working conditions, and protect workers' rights to organize? And we'll start this time with Chris.
So I think the most important is we need a federal jobs guarantee, and that needs to be in things like infrastructure, climate and wildfire readiness, health and social services. Because one of the big problems is that people take bad jobs because they can't find anything better, but there are a lot of things that need to be done, and until someone is paying for them, they just won't get done. I think that we also need to pass a livable minimum wage that's indexed to the cost of living and the price of inflation, because it makes no sense that you are working a full-time job and still can't make ends meet. We need to pass the PRO Act, which is going to make it easier for workers to organize. We need to also make it so card check is the law of the land, regardless of employer consent. I think we need to make it so that we are investing in our future with tuition-free public colleges, trade schools, and universities, because if you're not investing in education, you're not investing in anything. We need to abolish private prisons and end prison slavery being legalized. A lot of people don't realize, but after the Civil War ended, we left an exception in the Constitution that said you can still be a slave if you've been convicted of a crime, and that's directly related to what ICE is doing by kidnapping day laborers. We need to abolish ICE, and we also need to pass humane immigration policy with common sense pathways to citizenship that makes it easier to live and work here. We need to undo the big, beautiful bill, pass Medicare for all, and we also need to have federal hospitals so everyone has access to health care regardless of where they live, whether it's in rural or underserved areas. Finally, we just need to enshrine people's basic human rights into the Constitution so the wealthy can't keep blaming immigrants in marginalized communities when they destroy the economy.
Laura Koski.
I'm 100% pro-union. I was a helicopter pilot as well as a truck driver with the Teamsters. I was a union steward, and so I know the overreaching of these corporations, and it needs to stop, especially for the gig workers up in South Lake Tahoe. We have Marble Ice, and we had a lot of accidents with the Door Dashers and the Uber and Lyft Basically, Congress lowered the standards for all the gig workers. You know, the taxi drivers had strict laws and protections, and then all of a sudden they come up with this gig working and basically expendable occupation, and a lot of young folks have been in serious accidents. I would like to go back to the taxi laws where it's more stringent and safe. And obviously, I fought with the Reed Law Firm to make the age 25 years old. And I've also worked with the Oversight Committee to provide SUVs for our community, which they did. Lath Link is actually free after the concerts and whatnot. Thank you.
Christine Bish.
I was raised in a union family. My dad was a longshoreman. My mother was in the grocery clerks union. My uncle was a union butcher, and my aunt was a union meat wrapper. So you're looking at a girl who was raised in a union family. And what we saw where the unions had started out, it just really helping everybody, they became a political arm where more and more dues were taken and used for political purposes. I support the right to work. If people want to organize, they should be free to do that. But if you have a job and you choose not to belong to a union, that should be your option, not forced to belong to an organization unless you really support it. Now, I'm also in favor of work visas. We have a lot of people who were invited here by politicians of all persuasion. Now we have to make sure they have the ability to work to support their families. Now, as far as raising wages, I'd like to see us lower taxes. We are taxed on everything. California has the highest gas tax in the country. And talk about hitting our bottom line. If you raise my wage $1 an hour, guess what? The taxes are more than $1.50, on top of the increases that we're seeing because of what's going on overseas. We need to bring our jobs back to California so we're not getting oil from foreigners from countries that are our enemies. We want to see farm workers working here, not importing our produce.
Heidi Hall.
Oh, yeah. You're good.
Thank you. I was raised in a union household. My father was a high school teacher, and he taught me that was the best way people could get fair wages and fair protections, and I've been a supporter of unions all my life. In Congress, I will sign on to the PRO Act, and will continue to work with the unions to make sure that their protections are shored up. When I was in college, I spent a summer working with the California Agrarian Action Project to educate farm workers in the field on their rights with regard to pesticides. That was at a time when they were being forced back in the fields too soon, they were fainting, there was even a death. Since then, we've had institutions like OSHA that have been set up, and the civil rights offices that have been set up to protect people from exactly those horrible practices by corporations, corporate owners. This administration has devastated those organizations, OSHA in particular. When I'm in Congress, I will make sure that we set those organizations back up for success and bring the experts back. With regard to immigration and the danger that our immigrants are facing right now, I'm the mom, a proud mom of a stepmom and mom of 4 Mexican-American second-generation kids. Protecting our immigrant community is a family value. We need to reform the immigration system, add judges, make it easier for people to be vetted and come into this country. They're a critical part of our culture and economy. We must abolish ICE and make sure those folks cannot work anywhere else in the federal government.
Thank you. Pacey Cervantes.
Yes, I first have to say, you cannot be Republican and claim to be pro-union. Trump has tried everything he can to dismantle unions. His best friend is Elon Musk, the only automaker in America that refuses to allow unions to actually be in the workforce. That's why Biden, in the last administration, did not allow him in the meetings when it came to car manufacturing, because Tesla was the only auto company that did not allow unions. Unions are the backbone of our workforce. I will also tell you that when it comes to farm workers, deporting undocumented immigrants or immigrants in general is not going to help prices go down. If anything, it's going to help the prices make them go up. The other thing is the federal minimum wage. The federal minimum wage has not been increased. It's stuck at $7.25 since 2009. That makes it 17 years old. The federal minimum wage can legally drive. The federal minimum wage can legally almost join the military next year. That is insane that in 17 years the federal minimum wage has not increased. I have been part of unions many times. The most recently, when I was my mom's caretaker, I was part of the union SEIU 2015 for IHSS workers, and I had never been happier. Unions are the backbone of the workers and also the economy.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to be moving on to question 3. Can you share a specific example of when you partnered with a community organization, such as a union, nonprofit, mental health provider, or environmental justice group to create meaningful change, and what did that partnership accomplish? And we will start with Laura Koski.
I partnered with the East Shore Alliance in Nevada, and we had a big win on stopping the development of Barton Hospital across from the casinos. I was concerned that now we were building hospitals in the Grand Canyon. We had this pristine area, and they wanted to put a huge cement block there on a swamp area. And so I made my concerns, as well as the community's concerns, to the Oversight Committee. The nurses hadn't had their contract renewed in 9 years, and I felt if they moved the hospital from California to Nevada, the wages would be lower and you'd get high turnover, increase in accidents, and increase in lawsuits, which seems to be the going rate. And so I just made them aware that this needs to stop. And then the other win I had was with Zephyr Cove. They blew up the Tahoe Queen on our lake, and I was concerned of their operations, and I wanted the Forest Service to basically pull their permit, and they had oil out in Crater Lake as well as Yosemite. Aramark was trashing, and Trump was really smart and had the sheriffs close down the highway on July 4th so they couldn't trash our beach, and that helped out. And then we had sex trafficking problems up in Tahoe, and Trump came in with the FBI, and we captured like 23 criminals. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And Christine Bish.
I was also licensed with in-home support services, and what I did was I worked with seniors when they had gaps in their coverage, where they needed somebody, where their healthcare worker or in-home aide would be on vacation or away for family business, where they had someone reliable that could come in for light duty to help out where I could. I was also a roundtable commissioner for Boy Scouts of America. And what that was is I worked with the council to recruit adults at elementary schools all over Sacramento County. Because where we've got kids that are in affluent areas, we also have a lot of children that are in disadvantaged areas. And it's bringing in those adults that can teach them about conservation, about being self-reliant, and their relationship with nature and what their role is in it. It's teaching them to be self-reliant. But the biggest part of that, especially when we have single-parent homes, it's finding those adults that were willing to step forward and work with those kids. And I would say overall that was probably the most rewarding thing that I have. I know the troop near me, we ended up with almost 200 kids. We had to divide into 3 because we made sure, and I had a big part in making sure that we recruited responsible adults that were going to take care and lead those children. And I've seen a lot of great success stories that I don't have time to share with you because I just got ordered to stop.
Thank you. Yeah. Heidi Hall.
So one of the most interesting and proudest things I've done when I worked at the US EPA for 20 years was to work on the US-Mexico border team during the NAFTA negotiations. Our job was to create Border 2000 and make sure the environmental protections and labor protections were a part of NAFTA. Now, I would say we failed at getting what we really needed down there, but we did, in my team, create some great work. We worked with Profepa and Semarnap in Mexico and with local organizations to train them on how to create solid waste and hazardous waste dumps, how to clean up out of the maquiladoras who were stationed along the border there. One specific project was when we saw an American businessman had dumped toxic batteries on the border next to a dairy where the dairy cows were free to walk across that toxic dust. Those dairy cows provided the milk for Tijuana. We cleaned up that mess. We stopped that milk from being contaminated. And those kinds of things are critical for us to keep our toxic waste, to keep our corporations accountable. We must make sure we completely fund and staff our environmental organizations in this country. We must have good relationships with our neighbors around the world, because climate work and hazardous waste work and air and land and water crosses boundaries, and we must be able to work together to solve these problems.
Thank you. Pacey Cervantes.
So, like I said, I have been a radio DJ in the area for about 15 years. So really, the amount of things that we partnered was crazy. So I have a large list. However, I'm going to get to the most important ones. We did things from helping disabled vets decorate for Christmas in the district. I also was able, I love this, I was able to help a local elementary school build a garden so that their kids could learn to garden. I love that one. However, my two favorite things that I did in my 15 years here as a radio host in the Sacramento area, one was I partnered with BetterHelp. BetterHelp, if you don't know, is a company that actually gets you therapy online. And if you have ever tried to get a therapist through your insurance, it takes weeks, months, sometimes even years. BetterHelp was a company that actually you could get a therapist almost immediately. So I loved partnering with them. The main one that I loved partnering with, if you don't know me, I'm such a dog person, was the Bradshaw Animal Shelter. I would go there weekly, and we would highlight a dog that had been at the shelter for the longest time. I would always say, they wanted to, highlight other dogs. I was like, no, I want you to always show me the dog that has been here the longest, because that poor pup needs a home. And that was honestly probably my favorite thing I ever did in radio, was partnering with the Bradshaw Animal Shelter. So we accomplished a lot when I was on the air.
Thank you. Chris Bennett.
So one of the first things our campaign did was partner with the Regional Coalition for Palestinian Rights and Wellstone Progressive Democrats, the Our Revolution affiliate of Sacramento, to block a proposed Democratic Party rule to ban any mention of Gaza or foreign policy issues in local Sacramento Democratic parties. We partner with the Sacramento Food Bank when the president was using hunger as a weapon against the American people, and we were able to work with influencers to raise over $30,000 to feed people in the area. We've been part of the Immigrant Rights Coalition, and we've actually been at John Moss many times, and our coalition was able to get the Sacramento ICE resources being siphoned from the city and also make it a free speech zone there. We worked with Eco Sacramento and the local Sierra Club and the community to block the Coyote Creek project, which would have destroyed tribal cultural heritage, thousands of oak trees and blue oak trees in vernal pools, for a temporary project. We also are right now trying to increase awareness of the Tahoe energy crisis, where we are working with people to make sure that we're fighting against the data centers that are trying to drive up costs for everyone. And we've been on multiple picket lines with unions like UPD and the CNA and AFSCME 3299, which is why our campaign's been endorsed by unions representing over 825,000 people, like SEIU California, UPD, Unite Here 49, NUHW, CWA, and others. So our campaign is built on working with organizations and building coalitions.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the first three questions. Now we're going to move into a rapid fire section. Candidates will be asked a series of yes or no questions. Please just answer yes or no. And we will start off with question number one, and I will start off with Christine Bish. Do you support creating a pathway to citizenship for DACA recipients and dreamers? Yes or no?
Yes.
Heidi Hall.
Yes.
Percy Cervantes.
Oh, absolutely.
Chris Bennett.
Yes.
Laura Koski.
No.
Question two. Should Congress ban assault-style weapons? Heidi Hall.
Yes.
Percy Cervantes. Okay. Chris
Yes.
Bennett. Laura Koski.
No.
No.
Christine Bish? Okay, sorry. Okay. Question 3. Yeah, you guys got it?
Sorry, what?
No, I was just wanting to make sure you guys got the microphone in order. Okay. Do you support increasing federal oversight and accountability of immigration detention facilities? Yes or no? Starting with Percy Cervantes.
Hell yes.
Chris Bennett,
Yes.
Laura Koski,
Yes.
Christine Bish,
Yes.
Heidi Hall.
Yes.
Okay. Question 4. Do you support expanding federal funding for nutrition assistance programs such as SNAP and CalFresh? Chris
Yes.
Bennett.
Yes.
Laura Koski,
Yes.
Christine Bish,
Yes.
Heidi Hall,
Yes.
Percy Cervantes.
Oh, it's Pacey, sorry, but yes.
Pacey, sorry. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Question 5. Shh. Oh, okay. Let me pause for a second.
Now it's working. Excellent.
Okay. All right. So, shh. Okay. Now, where did I leave off? You're next, right? Okay. Should large corporations only receive federal subsidies if they pay workers a living wage?
Yes.
Heidi Hall? Okay.
The fact that's even a question,
Yes or no?
absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Okay. All right. Question 6. Do you support making the expanded child tax credit permanent for
Yes.
low and middle income families to reduce child poverty?
Yeah, you don't even have to finish the question, yes.
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 Thank you. Okay. Question 7. Do you support banning corporate investors from purchasing large numbers of single-family homes in working-class neighborhoods? Chris?
Yes.
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 C.
Question 8. Do you support federal protections to prevent utility shutoffs for low-income households during extreme heat or economic hardships?
Yes.
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 Thank you. Question 9. Do you support establishing a single-payer national health care system?
No.
Yes.
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 No.
Okay. Question 10. Do you support continuing U.S. military aid to Israel for weapons?
No.
God, no.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Question 11. Should there be term limits for Supreme Court justices
Yes.
and members of Congress?
Sorry. Yes, yes, yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Okay, question 12. Do you believe presidents should have immunity from criminal prosecution for actions taken while in office?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely not.
No.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to be moving on to closing statements. Each candidate will have 90 seconds for their closing remarks. Please keep an eye on time signals, and we will start Heidi Hall and go that way.
All right, thank you again for having me. We are at a moment right now that demands more than radical civility and strongly worded letters. The cost of living is crushing working families, and in Washington, politicians prioritize corporations and billionaires over the rest of us. We have a lawless administration running amok, dismantling protections, ignoring the law, attacking people and institutions that we depend on. And too many entrenched Democrats are not fighting back with the urgency this moment demands. We need fighters in Congress right now. Here on the ground, I have met challenges that others continue to miss the mark on. While politicians talk and fund programs that don't work, I led the way on a homeless program from the ground up that treats people with dignity and delivers real relief. As a lifelong environmentalist, I've led the way on tackling the climate crisis, advocating for green energy, and fighting big oil. That is what fighting looks like. I'm excited to work with folks here in this community and to help us meet the continuing challenges here and abroad. That is why I'm asking for your vote, for the families who need someone in that seat who will fight like it's personal, because for me, it is. Please go to HeidiHall.com to join our coalition for a brighter future.
So again, I'm Lyndon Pacey Cervantes. I will say this is not a guarantee, I understand that, but a Democrat will likely win this. Again, not a guarantee. However, if we continue to send the same people, what is that saying? If you continue to do the same thing and expect different results, that's the definition of insanity. If we continue to send the same people over and over and over again and expect different results, what is that going to give us? Insanity. So I highly recommend that we send a different Democrat to office. I'm saying that I should be that one because Democrats have a communication issue. We have a messaging issue. And why not send someone whose career spanned nothing but communication and messaging? Again, we have to expand affordable health care, moving towards Medicare for all. We definitely have to expand affordable child care because the childbirth rate is dropping dramatically. Even someone as conservative now, he used to be liberal, as Elon Musk is complaining about the childbirth rate. Well, why? Because it's so damn expensive to have a child these days. Women have to choose between careers and having a kid, which should not be the case. So we need to expand affordable child care and going towards universal child care. And thirdly, we need to take down these monopoly utility companies like PG&E, turn them into not-for-profit community energy providers. That is my plan. I have a whole bunch of other plans up right there at CervantesForCongress.com where you can see the policies and donate.
Thank you. Chris?
Once again, I'm Chris Bennett. We are at an existential moment for our democracy, where the great concentration of wealth into the hands of fewer and fewer people is undermining all of the values and ideals that we hold dear. We need to bring back antitrust enforcement, break up monopolies, and tax billionaires out of existence, because billionaires, just like homeless people, just like hungry children in school, are all policy decisions. And these decisions have been supported by both political parties for decades in office. We cannot, like Pacey said, keep electing the exact same types of people and expecting different results. I'm not a career politician, but I have eyes and ears, and our campaign is really about putting people back in power. We are built on hope and powered by people like you who understand that hope is not just a slogan. It is the belief, the conviction that we can have the things we want and need if we put in the work to make that hope a reality. So once again, please join our movement, help us take back our democracy. You can learn more at bennettforca.com. That's BENNETTFORCA.com. And help us fight for the things that most of us agree we should already have, so we can go back towards a future where young people can feel hope again and where our elders can rest. Once again, I'm Chris Bennett. Thank you, and please vote in June 2nd for our campaign. Thank you.
Laura Koski. I'm running for District 3 U.S. House Representative. I've done a fantastic job so far as an appointee for President Trump. Yes, there's been a lot of challenging issues, but we're winning. It's a small step. It's working with your community, and it's coming up with ideas and solutions for all these problems that we have. Big money is definitely an adversary, and together we can stop all this. And, we don't want surveillance by the state. We want surveillance of the state. We want to know where every penny of our tax dollars are going. I have made this clear to the oversight committees. And instead of the government having digital ID on us, we should have digital ID on them, who they're meeting with, and who's lobbying for them. The Democrats have to take responsibility for trillions of dollars that they diverted our hard-earned tax dollars. They basically admit to the 911 funding and the fire fraud and badges of fraud, but they don't want to take responsibility for the election fraud, which allowed these criminals to come in and access our hard-earned dollars. So I'm here to put that to a stop. President Trump and Elon have come up with Doge, and we've come up with the FBI investigating the local. All 50 states will be under investigation. Laura Koski for District 3, thank you.
Thank you. Christine Bish.
I know this community. I lived in a community very similar to it, out in Del Paso Heights. The difference was I lived in a car. I know what it's like to be stuck in the system. And I also know what it was like to watch my mother get the hand up, not the hand out, where she was given a job, and then my older sister ended up going to work. And we worked our way out of poverty. I know what this is like, living in Sacramento. And through the benefit of hard work and a good education, and it was a school very similar to this little community center, where I had access to books and teachers who cared about me. And we didn't have the technology. And imagine that, a community like this, where a little girl that lived in a car could now be a candidate for the United States House of Representatives. That's success. What I can tell you, of all the candidates running to represent you in Congress, I'm the only one that knows every part of the district, which is Sacramento all the way up to Truckee, up to South Lake Tahoe. Now, we've heard about career politicians, 30 years in office. Our current representative, Ami Berra, he's been in office his entire life. Has anything gotten better? Is insurance cheaper? Is food cheaper? Is gas cheaper? Has the homeless problem really improved, or have we just thrown a lot of money at it? We have an opportunity to be done with career politicians and really elect a citizen activist. My name is Christine Bish, and I humbly ask for your vote.
Okay, thank you. We will now move to the next segment of our forum, which will allow for audience engagement with a vote from the audience. One of the major foundations of this forum is to hear directly from the community, your voices and your priorities. So, raise your hand, audience members, if you think there should be more investment in protecting neighborhoods most impacted by climate change. Thank you. Okay, second question. Raise your hand if you believe in the creation of a public bank that prioritizes affordable housing, small businesses, and community projects. Raise your hand if you or someone you know has hesitated to seek services because of immigration fears. Thank you. Raise your hand if you believe county agencies should protect the privacy of undocumented families. Raise your hand if you think language access should be guaranteed across all county services. Raise your hand if you believe youth, immigrants, and renters should have a stronger voice in local decisions. Thank you. Final one. Raise your hand if climate change, rising rents, or unstable work have affected your family in the last 2 years. Okay, well, thank you to all of our candidates for participating tonight and for sharing your perspectives with the community. Thank you for our audience for your thoughtful attention and engagement, and to the community organizations and volunteers who made this forum possible. This concludes our forum. We appreciate everyone's participation and commitment to civic dialogue. Please travel home safely, and thank you for coming tonight. Thank you. I apologize. We have another section to this forum. Yeah, if you guys could just, hang tight. My apologies. I read through this too quick. Okay. All right. So, and you guys will give me the time. Okay. We are going to open it up to audience questions. And is there a list of questions somewhere? Oh, just, okay. Please enter. Do we want, let me give you the microphone. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carolina Flores, and I work with the Benito Juarez Foundation, which is a civil engagement group for Spanish-speaking immigrants. We're not saying undocumented or documented. This is the state of California guarantees in our Constitution that all residents have basic civil rights. Doesn't say you're white, speak English. A resident of California has basic civil rights. You mentioned the food bank. The food bank cut us off. Our organization gives weekly food distribution in the North Sac area, and Trump put out a notice saying that the no food services should go to the immigrants. We had the food stop. We feed over 100 immigrant document families, homeless, campesinos, and we had to gather, beg, and just try and barter as much as we can food to feed our people. We've been going for, actually it began 4 years ago, and the Benito Juarez Foundation started in 2016. I would like to know, what are you going to do about the food bank cutting us off? They get tax dollars just like everybody else. What are you going to do about that? What are you going to do about that outrage happening in Sacramento? It can apply to all of you.
Okay, we will start with Christine Bish and then just move this way towards Heidi Hall, if to keep it a little orderly. That in.
As your representative in Congress, I can promise you, I don't want anyone to go hungry. I was one of those kids that stood in line, we don't do that anymore, where we stood in line for cheese and peanut butter and those basic things. It's not like the SNAP program that we have now. And I know who my friends were when I was living in Del Paso Heights. And those were girls from all over the country and all over the planet. There were a lot of girls there that I was friends with who were not citizens. And I tell you what, going hungry does not discriminate where you were born. I am a conservative Republican, and I am passionate. And I come at this from a completely different angle, because I understand what it's like to need a hand up. And I will do everything within my power as your representative to represent this community and help assure that no one goes hungry.
Laura Koski.
I as well, I'm not for any children going hungry. And, you know, I basically advise the president on serious issues, and I think he knows as well. His concern were the sleeper cells and the violence from the illegals in our country, which is otherwise, you know, this all started from the Biden and Barack administration. And had they not been spending billions of dollars and giving it to Iran to basically give to terrorists to attack us, I don't think we would be talking about food issues.
I believe that no one is illegal on stolen land and that Latinos are the indigenous people here. But thank you for your service. You know, we actually met most of our campaign staff serving meals to our unhoused neighbors in Sacramento. So we do support mutual aid activities. But fundamentally, we need to make it so that our system does not promote cruelty for any reason. And we need to make access to food be a human right. So I think it is wrong that they're trying to starve people, that they're trying to use hunger as a weapon. You know, we are one of 2 countries in the world that do not recognize access to food as a human right. And I'm sure you can guess which 2 countries those are. So fundamentally, we're gonna make sure that we get the funding that the food banks need to serve everyone who needs to eat, because it shouldn't matter what your documented status is. Everyone who needs a home, everyone needs food in their belly, everyone needs to have access to health care. And if we're not prioritizing those things, then we are failing as a society.
Was it Israel? Was Israel the other country? Yes. I'm not shocked at all. So I also, like Christine Bish said, I also was raised on, before it was SNAP, it was something called, what we called food stamps, where you actually went into the grocery store. It was kind of embarrassing where they actually had to loudly stamp it, and I was with my mom, and I was like, oh my gosh. But it's nothing to be ashamed of, to be honest. That's what I realized growing up, is that if you need assistance, let me tell you something. The government taxes us more than enough. So why the hell can we not let the government help the people that actually need the help? Like the people that you help, for sure. The fact that, like Chris said, the fact that the Trump administration is using hunger as a weapon is insane. You know who doesn't fear about going hungry every day? billionaires. You know why? Because they don't barely pay any taxes. So, of course, my slogan is Build the Billionaires, and that's how we're going to get a lot more money to these food banks, is by getting them to actually pay their fair share, getting them to pay the same percentage of taxes that you and I do. And that is going to solve a lot of problems, including expanding affordable health care, child care for the same families that are food insecure. They also have issues getting child care and affording child care. So billing the billionaires, and I understand some conservatives are going to say, we can't tax our way out of these problems. Listen, I'm not asking to tax billionaires really more than normal people. I'm just telling them, I'm just asking for them to pay the same percentage of taxes that average Americans do.
Listen, this administration has weaponized and politicized absolutely everything, including where its money is going and where it's not. This is something we have never experienced in the 250 years of this country, and it has to be stopped in its tracks. We are going to need to rise up together and work together to support our communities that still need food and help while we try to overturn this administration by electing progressive Democrats in 2026 across the board to stop this insanity. It is absolute insanity. As a county supervisor for the last 9 years, I know and I can tell you that counties and states are stepping up all over the place to try to fill these gaps that are being created illegally and in a politicized way. California is being targeted because it's blue. And your counties are going to try to provide health care, food care. In my county, and I know other counties are looking at this, we're setting up systems so that even when immigrants are afraid to come out to pick up their food or to drop their kids off, that we have people able to provide that food, to transport the food and the assistance that they're going to need. We are prepared for this to get worse, but we're all going to have to stick together. This just incredible what's happening now. I am sorry that you're seeing that here in this community. I hope your community is stepping up. I hope the county here is stepping up. In Congress, I will make sure that we never weaponize food or health care or any of the other basic needs that we all deserve. I will also make sure that we protect our children better. One of the things that is a hard red line for me is that I will not allow children under the age of 18 ever to be detained. That is unbelievable that we allow that today. So I'm sorry for this that we're all going through. Our vulnerable communities are being hit the worst. Democrats are being hit the worst, and we need people to step up and fight this.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any other questions from the audience? We have here and here and here. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Here, here, here.
Hi, Edwin Cortez. I live in District 3, but I also work for a nonprofit called United Latinos that does a lot of work in South Sacramento. And what we do is we try to civically engage folks so that they can understand what's going on in their community. And a strong component of that is youth leadership, and how do we get youth involved in these types of conversations, to listen to folks that from your side, but also to understand the community's perspective. What would you tell a young person that's looking to vote or wants to know more about what's going on?
We'll start with Laura Koski and then move this way, okay? Towards me.
I spent my whole life taking people in the outdoors, teaching them how to ski, teaching them how to raft, kayak, backpack. I started a program at Chico State called Adventure Outings, and I hope to fund the university, or actually the community college up in South Lake Tahoe with an outdoor program. Once you're in the outdoors, you know, it's really kind of the campfire atmosphere. Everybody's able to say whatever they want, and obviously politics always came into play, and I enjoyed trying to educate them on my opinions and listening to their opinions, and as well as telling them to invest in like QQQ, $5 a month. And I would talk to them now about the bears getting hit, and the kids on the scooters are getting hit. And now we're adding motorcycles and cyclists on these high volume days. So a lot of it is just sharing, you know, our ideas. And, you know, when you're young, basically you can say whatever you want, you know. It's a free platform, and I like listening to them, and most of them up in South Lake Tahoe are really energized, just with talking with me, taking them on rafting trips, and teaching them how to ski. Thank you.
Chris Bennett?
So one thing that I like to tell people is that politics is what happens when you have more than 3 people in the room. And if you don't have a seat at the table, then you're on the menu. We also know that they wouldn't be trying to silence our voices or stop us from voting if our voices or if our votes didn't matter. So what I try to do is to promote more young people getting involved as early as possible, because every single problem that we are facing as a society is directly thanks to our political system and the way that it has been used to make money off of our basic needs. Now, one thing that Zoran Mamdani proved in his New York City mayoral race is that you can get young people to get involved and to show up and to vote, but it requires a few different things. 1, you have to actually show up and meet them where they are. 2, you need to speak their language. And 3, you need to actually give them something to vote for. Young people, one of the reasons why we don't show up to a lot of things is because it's like, well, it doesn't seem to matter who gets elected. Either way, our needs are not going to be met. And we're told that we need to shut up and listen when we are the ones who should be getting listened to. Youth are our future. And if we are not actively elevating their voices, then we are failing as a society. So I think the biggest thing is really just listen to young people, get them activated, make sure that you have more young people involved in that process, because the best way to get young people to show up to things is to have other young people there. And it's also good to have younger politicians who have good ideas that are going to make everyone's lives better, because the more people that we have that are excited about the policy and the platform, the more people are going to get excited about the policy and the platform. It's almost like we can get people to show up just because we're fighting for the things that every single one of us is desperately begging for. And for our young people, I'll just tell them, whether it's fixing potholes or changing the weather, politics has a role to play, and so we need you, and you need us.
Pacey Cervantes?
Gracias por tu pregunta. So I feel like I'm glad you brought up Zoran Mamdani, because I feel like he actually is the leader in this, because the biggest thing that we have at our hands is social media. To get the youth involved is social media, TikTok especially. I mean, if you guys are some of the most annoying songs get stuck in my head, like the San Juan, Puerto Rico. I don't know if any of you guys have heard that song yet. But those are the key issues or the key ways to get. I'm not making fun of San Juan, Puerto Rico. It's a song sorry. Those are the key ways to get the youth involved. Social media is a huge thing, and Mamdani is really the main one that got that started. If you guys haven't seen Zoran Mamdani's social media, you really should check it out, because he has mastered the art of getting young people to vote. And I strongly believe that that is a huge reason, and I think it's factual that that is a huge reason that he was elected. For me, social media has always been a huge thing. Radio, being on the radio for the last 10 years has been really huge with social media. Each of my videos gets hundreds of thousands of views, thousands of likes, and really, all I do is talk. Social media is a huge thing, especially when we want transparency, especially the youth. Youth is really looking for transparency. They're not looking for overproduced commercials, overproduced videos. They want to know what the politicians are thinking. And if the youth specifically are really good at seeing that out, if the politician is being being authentic or if not. So I do feel like that social media, especially with politicians, you have he's not here, so he can't defend himself, but Ami Bera, he doesn't know a damn thing when it comes to social media. Look at his social media, it's horrible. So him reaching out to kids is not gonna do well, and so that's why we need to vote these establishment Democrats out.
Thank you. Heidi Hall?
Yeah, I would agree that social media is important, but I think you all know that nothing beats one-on-one conversations. I have 4 kids and 1 grandchild. They're all in different stages of believing or not believing in this country, in this government. One of them has stopped voting and will probably not start even now, as his mom is in this race, because he is so discouraged about the state of this country and the state of the future for young people. My campaign, I have been endorsed by the High School Democrats of California, the High School Democrats of Sacramento, and I've got the majority of the young Democrats of Sacramento on my team and on my side as well. That's because I've spent time with young people, talking to them, listening to them. Whenever I have the opportunity, I sit down and ask what they're most worried about, what they care most about, what inspires them. Their number 1 and 2 issues are climate change and affordable housing. along with the whole cost of living issue. But they are so concerned that they're not going to be able to get out of their parents' house and find their own place. And they're deeply, deeply concerned about what we've left them with the state of this climate. We have to give them hope. We have to listen to them. We have to bring them in. I've got young people, staffers on my campaign. I've got young people working with me in this campaign. I've committed to set up a leadership institute when I'm in Congress that will bring young people in, similar to what Mike Thompson has done, bring young people in, increase our civic education, because we've lost that as well. So young people don't understand how government works and how they can have power. Bring them in, give them projects to work on, bring them into the congressional office, give them an opportunity that is not through the party to come in and see what we do and be this constant conduit for me to keep hearing what young people need. That is the critical job of our time right now, and I'm just really proud to be centering youth in my campaign.
Thank you. Christine Bish.
I am positive I have the youngest campaign volunteers. My two grandchildren, Riley and Milo, are 9 years old. Carson will be 11, and Emmy is 12. Believe it or not, they fight over who gets to help Grandma stuff envelopes, put out signs, and even go to events with me when they're not at school. And it's because we're instilling in them work. When you work, it gives you pride. We have a lot of kids right now that don't get to participate in school sports because it's not funded. There's parents who simply cannot afford a $150 registration fee, have to pay for all the equipment for the kids to participate. This is something that builds character, it builds a work ethic, and it teaches them how to win with grace and lose with pride. And this is something that our kids have lost. Now, because of the unions in the schools, kids can't work in school anymore. Because when I was a little girl out in Del Paso Heights, we didn't have free lunch yet. That wasn't part of it. So I actually worked in the cafeteria during my lunch recess, and I rinsed trays and paid for the lunch for me and my younger sister. And I don't look back on that as anything but positive, because it instilled in me a work ethic. And this is something I want to see with our kids. There's nothing wrong with doing hard work, and it builds character. I remember having a Saturday job delivering the newspaper for the Sacramento Bee. Unfortunately, because of the economy, kids are priced out of that first job. It's not safe for them to go door to door with a push lawnmower to try and earn a little extra money to help their family out. And this is what we need. We need to make what's old new again and teach children, regardless of how young they are, that they have value, that they can contribute to their homes and to their communities, and that we can build responsible young people who have options beyond sitting in front of a computer, sitting on a smartphone watching TikTok videos, where we're not complaining that they're not getting up and feeding the dog or taking out the trash. They know that's part of being in a family, that we all participate, that we all work. And that's what restores pride in communities and builds strong, healthy, intelligent adults.
Thank you. And we have a question here and then here. Do we have enough time for two questions?
Yeah, we have three questions.
Oh.
Questions. So those two.
Oh,
Who
okay.
had the
So then the gentleman over here with this in the suit, he has the question. And then who's the other person? Back over here. Okay, well, okay, please, sir.
I have a two-part question, but before I ask the question, I'm going to make a statement. I appreciate everybody being here tonight, sharing their thoughts and opinions, but by the same token, we did not address the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is the fact that we have a criminal regime at the head of this country. We are being run by an illegal band of criminals who need to be criminally prosecuted and put in prison. I'm saying this as a lawyer with many, many years of experience, including as a prosecutor in the Attorney General's office in the 80s. First part of my question is, if you're elected to Congress, will you vote to impeach Donald Trump and his entire cabinet? The second part of my question is, after he's impeached, exactly what will you do to ensure both civil and criminal accountability against this entire Trump regime? Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll start with Chris Bennett.
Yeah, so I'm actually part of a grassroots coalition of more than 150 candidates across the country who have all agreed at a bare minimum to sign articles of impeachment on day one in office. You know, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution when I commissioned from the United States Military Academy at West Point, and I took that oath seriously. And for us to maintain any semblance of accountability or democracy in our country, we need representatives who actually uphold their job under the Constitution. Now, beyond that, I will absolutely vote to impeach. I do think we need to impeach the entire cabinet and anyone who has collaborated with this regime. I think that we also need to have some form of Nuremberg trials to undo all of the damage and to hold every single person accountable who has violated our laws or the Constitution under this administration. I think that we also need to amend the Constitution because clearly what we are doing is not working, where people are able to consolidate more and more power under a single person, where the president can basically take bribes to give people pardons, where he can unilaterally declare war against other countries, which is a violation of the Constitution, because only Congress can declare war, where we can use masked federal agents to terrorize and brutalize both American citizens and immigrants alike. We need to change our system fundamentally, because unless we do, we are going to be living in this authoritarian fascist regime for the rest of our lives. So fundamentally, we need to impeach the president. We need to impeach everyone who has been part of his regime. We need to change the system, and we need trials to hold every single one of these people accountable, because that is what is necessary at a bare minimum to uphold our democracy.
Thank you. Pacey Cervantes.
So I am one of the Democrats, and probably up here as well, one of the Democrats that is actually okay with criticizing my own party. In fact, sometimes I criticize my own party more than I do Republicans, which some would say is actually not a great thing. Biden did not act soon enough. I really feel like Biden, when he took office, he actually should have arrested Donald Trump on day one. After the insurrection, I mean, the evidence was clear as day. So I don't really understand why Merrick Garland took 2 years in order to even bring charges. By that time, he had already become a political candidate in which his activist judges that Donald Trump appointed during his term decided to take his side and throw out so many of those things. You know, one of the things that this week Donald Trump could be impeached for is that damn settlement he had with the $1.8 billion that he's giving to January 6th insurrectionists. That is insane. On top of that, sorry, I'm very passionate about this. On top of that, with that settlement, the DOJ cannot even hold Donald Trump or his family or his corporations criminally liable for any tax fraud, which to me is an omission that he has actually committed tax fraud with his family and his corporations. So once we take over, we're going to have to completely void that settlement out, which I don't even think is constitutional, which is insane. So they're obviously, sorry, I know you had I know. I can go on and on for hours about this, but that's about where I'm going to end. So, yes.
Heidi Hall.
I think every Democrat on this panel is going to agree that we need to impeach Donald Trump, that we need to impeach a few of the Supreme Court justices, that we need to deal with his cabinet, which they aren't even qualified to do what they're doing. Most of them have no education in the areas that they're covering. I also want to see jail time. I think we need to criminally prosecute the huge amount of illegal and unconstitutional activities that have been carried out. We need to prosecute the ICE agents who have disobeyed the law in such an egregious fashion, committed murder. They should not be allowed to work for the federal government ever again. None of these people should be allowed to run for office again. Then we need to apply laws. We need to go back and make sure that our laws are such that they cannot do this again without an enforcement mechanism that works. So when they disobey the law, we can get them out. And then we're going to need to rebuild, and we're going to need to rebuild so much better than what we've got so far. This is why I'm in this race. The only one here who got in this race last year to run against Kevin Kiley, who is voted with Donald Trump 98% of the time. I got in this race to fight the MAGA insanity that was starting then and has only gotten worse. I have to say the fact that he wants radical civility, that he censured Al Green, who stood up against Trump, that he's continuing to want to write strongly worded letters, is not enough. With all due respect for what he may have done in the past, the times have changed. He has not changed with it. We have to pivot. We need new leaders. We need new actions. We need fighters. And I will not stop until we take this on and beat this administration.
Thank you. Christine Bish.
Well, I want to start with Kevin Kiley's not in this race, and that's why I am in this race. I started more than a year ago in the District 6, and when Kevin Kiley moved into 6, I made a commitment to my party, and I keep my word. And that commitment was they were worried I was going to run against Kevin. So I said, when and if he makes that decision, after bacheloring at up and down the state, deciding where he was going to drop his rose and run for Congress, which was obviously for him and not for the people, I wish him luck as a no-party preference candidate, and that if he is elected, he serves the people in his new district well. I intend to serve the people in this district. And your question goes back to Donald Trump. I would have to see the charges. We're not the Politburo where, you know, we can convict anybody. We just need someone to convict. If you were to show me concrete charges, but you know what? Winning an election is not a crime. Having a different viewpoint is not a crime. Now, I respect the work and your career as an attorney. I worked in a law firm for 10 years as an in-house investigator. I was a skip tracer. I repossessed cars. I know what it's like to chase bad guys and not have the support of a sheriff's department or a DA or anyone else, because I was out there doing my job. And what I can tell you is, it's not a crime to have an opposing viewpoint. Now, I am a Republican, and what I would rather see than spending the next 2 years doing Russia, 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 and trying to undo an election where he was duly elected, I would like to go after the members of Congress for insider trading, for taking gifts, taking junket trips, facilitating fraud, passing giant omnibus bills that are full of Answer your question again. I am not going to.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop here and let's just move on because we still need to get our final candidate, Laura Koski. So please, if you could wrap up your response.
I was going to say, I will not commit to impeaching anyone until I see the charges and that they are real charges, not just what do you call it? Not trying to get even because you lost an election. I wasn't happy with Joe Biden, but I wasn't trying to send him to prison.
Okay, can we move on to, move on to candidate Laura Koski's response? Christine, I just want to make sure you did wrap up your final comment. Yes. Christine, thank you. Okay, and Laura, please.
No, I would not. I've worked with the president for several years. I think he's the best president ever. And he's really supportive, and the majority of the Americans support him. Even around the world, they really respect President Trump and his cabinet. There's been 1,000 sealed indictments, and each indictment has 1,000 under it. Several people on the opposing team, so to speak, are going to jail. They're traitors, and it's unfortunate. And I just see, you know, I've researched this over and over and over, and Jack Smith with all these chumped up charges, and then you had Hillary's plant Carolyn saying she was raped, and those charges have been dismissed as well. She didn't even have a timeline. And I think really we need to come together now and start coming up with solutions and implementing those solutions. And it takes all of us. This is a team effort. And for us to keep battling back and forth, it's time to move forward and really come up with solutions. We have a lot of problems, and we need to eradicate them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let me check with our team. Okay, so we have a, if you guys can just give me.
All right. One more question for everyone.
Okay.
Oh. So we've touched on this a little bit, but as we all know, our communities are facing significant immigration uncertainty at the moment. So if elected, would you support permanent legal protection for essential workers and the legalization of other immigrants? Or what would be your priority on this issue in Washington?
That is a, well, hello. That is a very long answer that I'm going to try to shorten it up for you because we had a question earlier about dreamers. The fact that dreamers can still be deported is insane. But when it comes to immigration uncertainty, what I don't understand about Republicans thinking that deporting undocumented immigrants is anyway going to make life more affordable is just insane to me. Given especially, farm workers, when Trump first took over the ICE raids into the farms, that's one of the reasons that food has gotten so much more expensive is because he's trying to go in, he's just trying to go up and get his numbers up for deporting undocumented immigrants. That's really all it is. He's just trying to get points. He doesn't really care about the American people. He doesn't really believe that deporting undocumented immigrants is going to help anyone but his own name. So when it comes to immigration uncertainty, I mean, I would definitely not only try to push for DACA recipients to get a very quick pathway to citizenship. The thing about undocumented immigrants, sure, go for the criminals, but that's it. If they have been very necessary to our economy, especially farm workers, why are you going to deport someone that's been here for 20 years? Another thing that a lot of Americans don't understand is that these undocumented immigrants, they pay taxes. So it's not like they're here for free. It's not like they're not contributing to our federal economy or the tax system or anything. So why are we deporting these people that are actually paying taxes? That is insane to me as well. So I would actually call for amnesty for any undocumented immigrant that has not committed a crime, which is something that I believe Ronald Reagan did. I'm not too sure, but if a Republican can do it, then we can definitely do it. We can come together and do that as well.
Thank you. Heidi Hall?
Yes, of course, we should have protections for our immigrants. Of course, there should be a pathway to citizenship for our DACA students and folks who have already gotten older now as they've been waiting for this to get resolved. We need to redo this entire immigration system. This administration has criminalized people who are simply trying to get to this country, where they are workers and support and contribute to our economy and our culture, and trying to get away from violence in their countries or from deep poverty. There is no reason we can't have a humane and efficient system that allows folks to come in a more efficient manner, that allows them to stay and work while they're waiting for their paperwork to get done, that allows them to deal with the government perhaps through the internet, through emails, through appointments where they can start getting their appointments while they're in their countries. There are so many efficiencies we can make to this system, but the important thing is to acknowledge that we are a community together. Our immigrant community helps us We should help them. We are together in this fight against poverty, for living wages. There is no reason we should be criminalizing something that is an international issue, a human rights issue that we can solve if we just put the right minds to it.
Thank you. Christine Bish?
I'm two-fisting it. I do support a pathway to a visa, to a work visa, for people who want to participate in a legal system. I agree with that. What I disagree with is sanctuary policies that put immigrant communities at risk. Protecting criminals is always a problem, regardless of what their nation of origin is. Now, we have seen this repeatedly, where we see criminals who are arrested, they're released, where women have been killed, Lake and Riley, and there is a long list of other people who have died because of the sanctuary policies. Now, in California, we have a law that says that our law enforcement cannot cooperate with immigration and custom enforcement. If a sheriff, I just talked to Chad Bianco, if a sheriff cooperates with ICE, it's a $25,000 personal fine, and he can lose his job and be prosecuted. So we have government that has created this problem. Now, Ronald Reagan did do blanket amnesty, and it was supposed to be the end-all, be-all. We would never have these problems again. And the truth is, we do need the people that want to come here, that want to work, that want to assimilate into our culture and work and live as American citizens. What we need to do is fund our immigration courts, fund attorneys that are going to be working, offer them attorneys that would work pro bono, is to make sure that they do cover, that we fix the system for people getting here. Now, most recently, there was a gentleman from Istanbul. He came here, I believe he was 3 years old when he came here. And his parents overstayed their visa. He was raised as an American citizen. He was married and had children. He should have been pushed to the front of the line as a hard-working person to get his visa, a permanent visa, because he was a victim of his parents' poor decision. This is where we have to start looking at it, because politicians invited people here, Republican and Democrat alike. We do have a problem, but in California, we have to address the elephant in the room, and that is protecting criminals. Now, those sweeps that we see is because they're not allowed to pick up the criminals. And if you think intimidation in immigrant communities is not happening, we saw this in the Colorado, not just California, where we saw Trende Awagra take over an entire apartment building and torture those people. We've got to have common sense solutions, and it doesn't mean sweeping change. It means funding it and making sure that we work with people.
Thank you. And next we'll hear from Laura Koski.
The Constitution demands that we protect our borders, and it was obvious the illegals were allowed to come in, 20 million, to steal our elections. And it was proven over and over. UPS shipped them in by buses. They were flown in. We see the devastation in Minnesota with the Somalis. No one is denying this. It's horrible. Obviously, it's love of people. But make no mistake, the sleeper cells were up in South Lake Tahoe. We were having 40 gang members and knife fights. And this is from illegal activity and criminal activity. I believe in secure borders, quality control. We already allowed 2 million into the United States by going through the process of understanding our Constitution, which affects all of us. This is really a serious situation. You can't just allow anybody to come here and be exploited even for themselves and to saturate the market. It needs to stop. And the farmers unfortunately, it looks like with the data centers and the robots coming, this is all off kilter, I'd like to say, in a way. Yeah, so, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Chris Bennett?
Okay, so there is zero evidence that immigrants had any role in the election. The much bigger issue is voter suppression, which happens all across the country, especially in red states controlled by Republican legislatures. My ex had a non-white sounding name, and when we went to vote, when we lived in Georgia, my vote got counted and hers did not. So that is the real issue that we're facing. Additionally, sanctuary policies, their purpose is to make it so that immigrants can actually call and use public resources without fear of deportation or being harassed for their immigration status. So when you get rid of sanctuary policies, now if an immigrant lives in a community where there is a crime, they're not going to report it. So sanctuary policies are actually meant to protect immigrants, and they're meant to protect the communities that they are members of. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is that this country used to have open borders. You know, you'd go to Ellis Island, it was give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. You'd come in, if they couldn't pronounce your name, they'd give you a new one, and then you were an American. And it was the robber barons who built the railroads. They didn't want to pay Americans livable wages, so they brought in cheap Chinese labor. The Chinese built our railroads. After these robber barons made their money, they then allowed people to blame the Chinese immigrants for the reason why they couldn't make ends meet. That led to the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, which was the genesis of our racist immigration system. Now, does it sound familiar to anyone where a bunch of billionaires are destroying the economy and somehow blaming immigrants for it? Yeah. Well, what happened after that was that we had a grassroots collective movement rise up across the country, and that gave us the labor movement. Things like the 40-hour work week, the 8-hour workday, weekends, public schools, public roads, libraries. These are things that were fought for because we had such terrible income and wealth inequality during that Gilded Age. And right now, our income and wealth inequality is even worse than it was back then. So fundamentally, we can't keep allowing these people who are the richest people in the history of the planet to destroy our economy and then scapegoat immigrants and now trans people and other marginalized communities. So fundamentally, we need to actually have a humane immigration policy. We need to protect immigrants. We're also facing a demographic crisis where we have an inverted population pyramid like many other advanced economies are seeing. We absolutely cannot be pushing people out. We need to be bringing them in. We need to make it easier for people to live and work here legally. We need pathways to citizenship for people. We need to stop putting anyone in a cage, whether they're a child or not. And we need to make it so we have freedom of movement. Because fundamentally, immigration is what built this country. Whether you came here consensually or non-consensually, everyone here who is not an indigenous person is an immigrant of some form. And so we need to remember that, we need to respect that, and we need to stop allowing immigrants to be blamed every time the ruling class, the richest people on the planet, destroy our economy. And fundamentally, we just need to actually use humane policy and treat people like with the dignity and the respect that they deserve.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have time?
Yeah, they told me out loud. This is from, excuse me, I lost her. This is from Debbie. She's on the live chat from Access Sacramento. Oh, there you go. Thank you. It's Debbie P. 4367. What will you do to fight back against the current administration for trans people and especially trans people of color?
This should be clear as day. Trans people are people. Human rights, trans people deserve human rights just like every other person deserves human rights. They deserve health care just like the rest of us deserve health care. I will stop every effort they have made to target and dehumanize trans people, and we will move on and continue to make sure that we have human rights here in this country the way we should, that we are not targeting anyone, and that we are not, I mean, it's unbelievable that we're targeting people for who they are, whether it's immigrants, whether it's LGBTQ people, whether it's trans people, whether it's immigrants from other countries. We need to treat each other with humanity and dignity and listen and learn to each other and begin to understand each other. And we should all be working together towards that goal.
Thank you. Christine Bish?
Trans citizens like any other citizen, still has civil rights. They have the rights that were granted to them by God. The Constitution applies to everyone equally. It's when we have different groups of people asking for special privileges. We shouldn't be discriminating or giving any special privileges to anyone based on their race, their religion, or what sex they choose to be. The difference is we should not have taxpayers forced to pay for their choices. Whether they are born or believe they were born in the wrong body, I can sympathize with anyone, regardless of the situation that they're in. But at some point, we have to say, we have to treat everyone equally, because we do have equal protection under the law, under the Constitution. I don't approve of carve-outs.
Laura Koski?
Unfortunately, the trans community have a very high suicide rate, and if you really, really care about the trans community, you would be out there in the community working with the youth, and the outdoors provides that environment. And I think you would have a decrease in this mentality that they need to change their sex to fit in. I did a lot of research on it, and just to know that there is a high suicide rate within that community is concerning, as well as the fact the adults that transition in the criminal prison system, they use it to access, when they get out, access the women's bathrooms and whatnot. So it's a really detrimental question in a lot of ways. I think it's also, if you follow the Bible, it's an abomination. And so once they choose to do it, but I think you should be honest and with these individuals and it's free will. Once they make their decision, sure, we still support them and love them and in every which way. But if I was talking to say a youth and he wanted to transition, or her, I would tell him the truth. And I think that's what the problem is. We are not sharing our true beliefs. We're just trying to enable people, and I think it's wrong. Thank you.
Chris Bennett?
Okay, so obviously trans rights are human rights, and trans people have always existed, but the Bible does not say anything about trans people. It also doesn't say anything about abortion, for that matter. Now, these are things that have been created by Republicans in order to turn Christians into single-issue voters to convince us to vote against our interests. So that's one thing that I want to point out. Another thing is, we've all heard the poem, first they came for the socialists, but I did not speak up, for I was not a socialist. And it ends, then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak up for me. It was also Frederick Douglass who said, find what a society is quietly willing to accept, and you will find the exact measure of injustice that will be inflicted upon them. Now, what we are seeing right now is Republican legislatures across this country have been legislating the absolute misery into trans people. They have been passing tons and tons of bills to make it illegal to exist as a trans person. But trans people don't do anything to harm anyone. Trans people existing does not harm anyone. The reason why Republicans are doing that is because they know that most people have never even met a trans person, and they may seem scary, or you don't understand them, and therefore it's easy to put all kinds of terrifying things onto them. But it's all nonsense. Just like immigrants are not to blame for the problems that we're facing, trans people are not to blame for the problems that we're facing. Now, I worked in healthcare. I worked at Kaiser Permanente, and we actually had a gender-affirming care clinic at the Oakland Hospital where I used to work. And the overwhelming scientific and medical consensus is that the best health outcomes for trans people comes when you actually give them gender-affirming care and you stop trying to erase their existence. The reason why the suicide rates are so high is because people are saying, you don't exist. You're not allowed to exist. I invalidate who you are, and I'm going to attack you because I don't like it. But what we really need to do is go towards treating trans people like human beings and giving them the same exact civil rights and human rights that every single one of us deserves. A lot of us have heard of the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated, but we need to go by the platinum rule. which is treat others the way they want to be treated. It costs us absolutely nothing to use a pronoun that someone prefers. It costs us absolutely nothing to make sure people have the exact same access to health care that all of us deserve. It costs us tremendous amounts when we try and make someone's existence illegal. Every single person deserves to live in dignity and safety. And when we are allowing someone to be singled out because of their inalienable characteristics, it is going to cause problems. So once again, trans rights are human rights, and we need to codify them into the Constitution, just like immigrant rights, just like reproductive rights, because until we do, the ultra-wealthy and the people that are destroying our democracy will always use them as scapegoats when they destroy the economy.
Thank you. Pacey Cervantes?
So as a gay man, I honestly recognize this battle that trans people are going through right now. And gay men are still going through battles, especially with this administration as well. But back in the 90s and early 2000s, we were treated just as trans people are being treated right now. Perfect example. I saw someone online today saying that trans people should not be teachers. You know who was not allowed to be teachers back in the 90s and 2000s? Us gays. So and the funny thing is that conservatives are now trying to say, oh, you know, we're not homophobic. Okay, well, the LGBTQ community stands as one community because we are all being pretty much oppressed the same way. So again, like I said, gays went through the fight that trans people are going through right now. So like Chris said earlier, is that if me as a gay man, I don't speak up for trans people for just existing, then of course the Trump administration and conservatives are going to go after my rights, especially to marry, which there are still conservative lawmakers in the South trying to overturn gay marriage. They need to let that go. It's been 10 damn years. Y'all need to let that go. The other thing is conservatives are so worried about trans people being with kids. You know who they should be worried about being with kids? Priests. Because those are the ones that are more likely to molest children than trans people. The suicide rate for trans people is so high because they're being told, like Chris said, they should not and cannot exist. They are also in fear for their life. Trans people are still being killed to this day. We have the bathroom fight. You have been in the same bathroom as a trans person, and you probably don't even know it. One of my favorite games to play, and I know trans rights is not a game, but I call it a game because one of my favorite games to play with conservatives that I know is showing them pictures of trans people. I showed a conservative woman a picture of a trans man, and I said, would you be comfortable with being in the same bathroom as this trans man? And she said, I don't think my husband would be comfortable with that. And I'm like, well, that's what you guys are trying to do, forcing them to use the bathroom that coexist with their assigned sex instead of what they actually show and are clearly, the gender that they are portraying. So that being said, like Chris said, trans rights are human rights. The suicide rate, especially for trans children, are up just because they are being told they should not and could not exist. So we really, really need to see this as very similar to the gay movement, where we were told things that we should not and could not be doing back in the 90s and 2000s.
Thank you. And I believe that concludes the questions. Is that? I think so. Okey-doke.
So we are very excited that Access Sacramento came and streamed this event for us and enabled people. We wanted to give them giant thank you. We wanted to let you know that Access Sacramento has amplified the voices, stories, and the creativity of our region, one program, one film, one local story at a time. Through community arts coverage, local news, election forums like this one, youth media training, and public affairs programming, community media has strengthened civic participation and ensured that our Sacramento residents can see themselves reflected in the public sphere. Now that work is under threat. The Sacramento Metropolitan Cable TV Commission is considering additional cuts to community media funding after unexpectedly reducing support for Access by 50% for the final quarter of this fiscal year. More cuts are expected to be considered at the commission meeting on June 4th. I'm not going to go on any farther, but we want you to know that Access Sacramento is key and incredible. So we want you to know that you can donate to them. We have a basket back there. Any amount of money is critical and necessary, so thank you. We also want to thank Univision for coming and being here, and all the other media. The Sacramento Bee is here as well. Thank you for your coverage of this event, and we look forward to future events. Thank you, candidates.